Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 7, The Dark Tower, Part 1, Chapter 7, and Part 2, Chapters 1 and 2. In these chapters, this motherfucker had to fuck with my head and make me think that Oi was about to get it. He couldn't fucking help himself, could he? That is just rude. Welcome to Unspoiled.
I was reading it again, and I got to that part, and I was like, oh shit, I'll bet Natasha fucking, had a conniption when she read that.
I read it, and I saw that it was, the lamp round gold eyes, and I went, oh, fuck. And then I took a deep breath, and I went, it's okay, Oi's gonna fuck him up. That was how I said it. In my head, was like, he's going to get through it. Oi's going to just fuck him up. And then it turned out to not be Oi at all, which was somehow worse. Because then it made me face the fact that I was like, oh, it's not Oi, it's fine. Oh, thank God. When in
Somebody
fact,
else died.
Bumblers are still very knowing, intelligent, sweet creatures. And this poor little one is a baby with brothers and sisters going, don't hurt me, and I just want to go play.
Yeah.
So that was fucking terrible. And thank you, King, for doing that to me. You monster.
I'll tell you. Hi, everyone. I'm Miles, and I've read these books before.
Hi, Miles. I'm Natasha, and I haven't read any of these ever.
Well, that's a coincidence, Natasha. It's crazy. But, dude, I was reading these chapters, and I was like, fucking hell, this book. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was rereading these, and I'm like, this is a fucking slog, and I don't care.
With these chapters?
Yeah.
Now, see, that's interesting, because I didn't feel that way completely. But, alright, so first we start off with the end of the first part of the book. Which is pretty satisfying because all of our guys that were chasing Jake get mown down.
Yeah, it's just
no ceremony whatsoever.
It's just like when last we left Eddie and Roland was like, Jake is telling me where to go by the touch, so let's go there. Mm-hmm. And they show up, they mow down Flaherty, or how do you pronounce it again?
Flaherty,
yeah.
I think that's how you say it.
And Lamla and everybody else, the fucking vampires, everybody, they just mow him down. Lamla's like, if I agree to not fuck you up, will you let me go? And Roland's like, nope, and shoots him. It was great. And then they go through the door, and they're all together again. So that's basically all that happens in the first chapter, right? I mean, is there anything about that first chapter that you want to bring up?
Just the fact that I'm realizing that, King shies away not at all from the concept of... not even the concept. He straight up has, a whole thing up in here about deus ex machina.
Yeah!
Where he's just so, some writers just do this thing, and,
oh my God.
Pretty interesting, and people like it a lot of the time. He has to have the character who's, delighted by it, rather than somebody who's going, yeah, that's kind of cheap.
Well, because it's Eddie who thinks it, right? And, is Eddie delighted by it? I think he just kind of observes it and thinks about it.
I think that he's thinking about, not that he's delighted by it, but more that the concept of it was really interesting to him.
Ah, yeah.
I guess is really what it was.
I mean, not so interesting that he paid attention in school.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that he did that like, bothers me more now than it did the first time. I'm like, oh my god, you're just like... It was almost like... Did you ever see the movie JCVD?
No.
Okay, real quick. JCVD is a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, hence the title.
Great.
Where
liking this a lot already.
Where Jean-Claude Van Damme plays himself, and he plays himself like broke and out of work and having to make child support payments, and he has to like go to the bank to ask for a loan, and the bank gets stuck up. And there's this whole story about like what he's gonna do. He's one of the hostages in the bank, right?
Okay.
And in the middle of the movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like, the camera just pans straight up, and he goes with it. He rises out of the scene to this, like, other level of the bank or something. I don't know. The camera just follows him as he levitates up, and then he stops, looks directly into the camera, and basically proceeds to apologize for his career. He basically looks at the camera and he's like, hey, look, like, I know that you guys had a lot of expectations of me, and I didn't really meet those, and the movies I made weren't really good, so, you know, sorry.
That's
and then, like,
weird.
it goes, and then he levitates back down with the camera, and the movie continues as though there were no interruptions. It's a really good movie. I strongly recommend everyone checking it out. But that's what this felt like to me. It's like King's taking a minute to be like, yeah, you know, just so you guys know, like, all this shit that has gotten my characters back together again and has moved the plot forward, it's all kind of like this technique that is only vaguely justified narratively. But we're just going to keep going with it, okay? Okay, back to the action.
It's like the ballsiness. That's the thing that keeps impressing me about him as a writer, is how he just decides that he doesn't care if anybody takes it seriously. He's just like, no, this is what I'm doing. You can either be along for the ride or, you know, not. But either way, this is happening.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's framed, too, with a religious implication, where it's like, well, but people who believe in God love this kind of thing, because they think God actually does look after good people. Do you not believe in God, heathen?
See, I didn't feel like that's what he was saying. I felt like he was saying, like, it's like deus ex machina works because people really fucking hope that there is somebody watching out for them. And so it's sort of like, maybe it shouldn't really work, but because we all want to believe that things are gonna work out for us, we're willing to, like, go with it more than maybe we should, just because of our own tendency to, like, you know, want justice to prevail and want good to win out or want things to work out. Yeah. I almost feel like he's saying, like, it's kind of childlike that people...
interesting. I don't know.
You know?
Okay.
But...
I mean, I can see that. I'm not sure that's not what I saw when I was reading it, but I can see that interpretation.
Oh, God. So this first chapter where they get mown down, it is really... It was really tough for me because it felt like, again, our dudes just come in and have no opposition. Like, they just don't... Whoever they're up against is absolutely no match for them whatsoever.
Their enemies don't even get the chance to fire their guns.
Exactly. And, like, in a lot of cases, I find this to be really fun, and I love that they're so competent and great at what they do, and there are moments where I'm just, like, 100% here for it. But then it gets to the point where I'm, like, getting bored by it and want an enemy to feel like there's anything to be feared from them, you know? Like, what is an enemy worth if I'm so certain they are going to serve no threat whatsoever? So
it was...
Yeah, go ahead. Well, it just basically going down that same road. I want badass main characters, but I don't want it to feel so easy as to be a foregone conclusion either.
It's interesting, too, because in some ways, like, when the quartet was split,
Mm-hmm.
it seems as though the challenges faced by the divided parties were, like, inverse in terms of challenge rating than they ought to have been, right? Like, Susanna had the fucking, like, biggest ordeal of everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Jake and Callahan had to go in, like, a bunch of vampires and shit, and Callahan didn't make it, and Jake barely made it. So, like, when they're all together again, and Susanna and Jake are like, oh, we're so tired, and we're so hungry, and, like, of course you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've been through shit. But then it kind of feels like Roland and Eddie are also, at least Roland is also like, oh yeah, we should rest, I'm so tired. It's like, Roland, buddy, you didn't have to do that much, man. Like,
yeah, Roland,
you had to.
You just spent the last 4 hours telling a story to a guy in a cabin while
Yeah.
having beer and stuff.
Like,
so
chilling. And before that, you went and talked to a writer, and yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing besides the Deus Ex Machina factor that's involved in this chapter, I kind of feel bad for Lamla. But beyond that, what I thought was interesting was probably the thing that stood out the most to me is that when Flaherty recognizes Roland,
mm-hmm.
and he says, I know your name by your face and your face by your mouth. 'Tis the same as the mouth of your mother who did suck John Farson with such glee until he spewed his and then he dies.
Yep.
But, did that strike you as weird?
That he knows who Roland is by his voice?
That he knows that about John Farson and Roland's mom and everything.
I mean,
he's just like a fucking side villain, man. I don't know.
My point of view on that, honestly, is that Roland has probably been the big bad for the other side for a little while, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy that they've all kind of known they're up against, ultimately. And if I were kind of running things on the other side, what better way to bring him low than to brag about how his mom used to blow me?
I guess.
I feel like that's just when you say isn't that kind of weird that he knows that? I'm like, yeah, probably. But honestly, in the moment, I was just like, no, that makes sense.
I guess the weirdest thing for me is that he used the name John Farson. Because if he's that in the know, then he knows who John Farson is and probably would not call him that, right? I don't know. It just felt a little bit out of place for me. The other thing that felt out of place was, in this chapter and in a lot of the other chapters, at one point I was like, all right, Steven, you're just fucking making up words now. It's okay, but you're just making up words for no reason.
What word does he make up?
There's a dude. Okay, so I mean, he just adds them together and adds a little shit. There was a trail dusty gunnagar at their feet.
I totally didn't even notice that. This is how much him making up words is just does not faze me at all anymore. I'm just like, yeah, gunnagar. Yeah, I don't know. It just means something probably.
And then later in the same thing, it's, oh god, I just had it. Oh, Lamla calls him Charika.
Right.
And there's more, throughout the fucking, chapters that we read. Is Bobo comes up for baby, and there's just a bunch of them. And I'm just over it. Stop making up words.
Yeah, that's really fair. That's really fair. I gotta admit that I'm so unfazed by it at this point that I didn't even notice it. I really didn't until you just said it right now, and I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm kind of judging myself on that, the fact that I didn't notice it. But when you point it out, I'm like, yeah, that's true. It just feels like we're in the last book here, guy. Maybe just chill a little bit and let what you've said exists stand as its own thing and don't feel the need to constantly add stuff.
I think one of the interesting things about this, and like I'm sorry to people who really like this book because I really don't. But I think one of the weird things about this for me is that, like, we still don't... It is book 7, and I still don't fully understand how this world works. And it seems like it's getting more confusing, not less.
Right.
And it just... I just feel like this is not the time to be expanding on your mythos, dude. Mm-hmm. Like... You had plenty of time for that, and you went and expanded, you did it, and now it's like, now is the time to wrap everything together and kind of clear things up and, like, solve some mysteries and give us some answers, and it's just like, now we're just gonna throw out little shit. Like, I don't know. It doesn't strike me as, like, tight writing, which I guess is like saying the sky is blue, and Stephen King doesn't write tightly sometimes, but, like, you know, I don't know. It bugs me.
No, I feel you. I don't blame you. I think I'm just resigned. That's just, like, the difference in where we each are right now, is that I'm just like, yeah, well, you're not wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a big shrug in there.
There's the bit later when Nigel says he's reading a really good book by Stephen King, and I felt that way there. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. You know.
Yep. Yeah, listen. He's just, it's fine, sure, okay. Moving on.
Let's go to the next chapter.
Yeah, let's go to the next one here. So,
well, although I do like the bit about how Jake calls Roland father, and they have a really sweet hug.
That
and a
was
really sweet
really
moment
cute.
right there. So I don't want to gloss over that because that's awesome.
I liked that, and I loved that Eddie just can't stop touching Susanna because he's like got to make sure that she's actually still there.
I love that bit, and the description of it, where it's like, you know, you don't really, whenever they're gone, you don't think in your deepest heart they're ever coming back, because you don't fucking deserve this. Mm-hmm. And I can relate to that so completely.
Yep.
I think we've talked about it before.
I just have a fucking deep fear that, like, yesterday I had to drop Owen off at work, and I just suddenly got gripped by this fear and was like, please be careful today. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because you might die. Just don't die.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you, please. God, just... Okay, so speaking of made-up words...
Yeah.
Looking at remained of Susanna's twin, which was to say her twin. Really? 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 We're gonna change one letter and italicize it and then pretend it's a different word? Is that what we're doing, Nuncle?
Oh, I didn't even think about that one, but that's funny.
God damn, like, this is just some balls, some cojones on this man.
Yeah.
So, and let's see. Oh, and then the whole chapter is also called the Devartete, which is supposed to be the little torture chamber.
Yeah, little prison or torture chamber, yeah.
Let's see. And yeah, they're looking at the body and of just how weirdly inhuman it looks at this point. And Roland thinks about how probably the world will end because of somebody loving someone, because that's way more dangerous than hate. They sit down. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if that's a philosophy that I find a lot of resonance with personally.
Okay,
but you know, I don't know. I think it'd be an interesting conversation. What's more likely to end the world, love or hate? I think you could argue it either way, but I think that in general, I'm of the opinion that that it's the other one, Roland.
I'm of the opinion that ¿por qué no los dos?
Fair enough.
So they sit down and talk about what happened and tell each other everything. And this is when we get, well, who left the bag in the vacant lot? Was it the Rose? Were I to guess, I'd say that Cy King left those signs and sigils. And then comes the deus ex machina. Such ideas had absolutely gone out of fashion in the modern age, but Eddie thought that popular novelists of the sort Cy King seemed to be on his way to becoming probably still used the technique, only disguising it better. No. It is not disguised. We are aware of it. At times painfully so. Dude. Cards that read get out of jail free or escape the pirates or free storm cut electrical power or execution postponed. The god from the machine, who was actually the writer, patiently working to keep the character safe so his tale wouldn't end with an unsatisfying line like, and so the quartet was wiped out on Jericho Hill and the bad guys won, ruled Discordia, so sorry, better luck next time. What next time? Ha ha, the end.
It's almost as though King thinks that the only way to end a story is like that or using Deus Ex Machina. At least the only way to end this story.
I just don't, like... It... I don't know. There's like a lot of arguments that I want to make, but I can't yet because we haven't finished, so I don't know where it actually heads. But at the moment, it really feels like if you think that's the only way to get out of the corners you've written yourself into, maybe reevaluate the corner. You can't, like, I get that to a degree as a writer. There are some things that you think you can control as you go into it that you can't. That you wind up in a place and you're like, there is no way to undo this. Like, that where we are is where we are. And I recognize that, and I even respect that. But if you gotta rely on this all the time, and it kind of starting to feel like all the time, to keep your ending from being unsatisfactory, maybe it deserves an unsatisfactory ending? Maybe that's just what you get. Maybe that's what you're writing. Because otherwise, you get a satisfactory ending with an unsatisfactory middle. And I feel like that's worse.
I would like to put a pin in this until we finish, but can we try to remember it and come back to it? Because I have so many thoughts, but I can't say them because I can't risk spoiling the ending for you. So
noted.
So let's listeners, if we forget, remind us that we were going to come back to the conversation about Deus Ex Machina after we finish the series, and we can actually talk about the ending and whether or not it works. So, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, noted.
What's more annoying to me is that right after that, we get yet another. If Susanna had said this thing to them, then what might have been different, I wonder? We may never know, because at that moment the fucking butler robot came back in and distracted her, and she certainly did not remember to tell it to them later. It's like, it's bad. And the last paragraph, which ties these two things together. So this time, something which might have been spoken was not, and the Deus Ex Machina, which might have descended to rescue a writer who had a date with a Dodge minivan on a late spring day in the year of 99, remained where it was, high above the mortals who acted their parts below. Like, if somebody had just been, like, one of my friends had been like, hey, I wrote this paragraph, what do you think?
Right.
I would have been like, dude, like,
You have
I love
crawled
you.
so far up your own ass right now. You shouldn't even be able to ask me this question.
You have forgotten what daylight looks like.
You've
That's
forgotten
how
the
far up
face
your
of
ass
your
you
father.
You've forgotten the face of your rectum. Like, it's... That paragraph makes me want to shoot somebody.
I don't... Okay, so... Obviously, don't spoil me, but here's my fucking gander here.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and say that the book ends cut off. Stephen King never actually finished the novel because he was killed on such and such a day. And that's the fucking ending, is that there isn't an ending and we never actually know what happened.
Oh, boy.
And
that would be an ending.
if he does that,
kind of.
I will just remove this whole podcast from iTunes entirely. I'll just undo it. I'll just burn it to the ground, because that is some, like, David Lynch-esque fuckery that I can't truck with. Can't do it. So that's where I'm going with it right now. And, like, and the very idea that because Susanna gets interrupted here, she never tells them about this really fucking important piece of information that she heard about.
I fucking hate it.
The cornerstone of this whole thing, which is that a guy is writing it and it's so important that they, like, went back in time to talk to him. And she doesn't remember it because they got interrupted by a robot for a second. Is so utterly unbelievable. We know Susanna. This isn't a dumb woman. She would not be that easily put off. Come on.
Yeah. And, like, it would be one thing if they were interrupted by a robot and then, like, a firefight broke out.
Right, exactly.
But, like, they're interrupted by a robot and then they have a picnic.
Yep.
And
It's basically they're at a table and their waiter comes by.
Yeah.
And she was about to tell them that her mother has cancer, and the waiter leaves, and she's like, what were we talking about? I really love that dress. Like, how does... You don't just forget something of that magnitude. This is...
Right. Especially because what she's forgetting to tell them is a dream that she has remembered in extreme detail. She remembers that he was 52 when he died. And she can't remember to bring this up again later when they're eating Jake's disgusting sandwiches.
What is it about people back in time who had, like, the worst taste in cuisine that you've ever seen? It's really, like, there's this Twitter that I follow that's I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like something like 70s food, and it's pictures from old cookbooks and recipes of some of the most vile, I mean, what fevered mind concocted these? They should be on medication.
Let me tell you something. If somebody came up to me and was like, hey, would you like the sandwich? It has, I'd be like, what's in it? Oh, well, it has banana and it has bacon. I'd be like, stop. Stop right there and go think about what you've done.
Go sit in the corner, you monster.
Yeah. Go repent.
I just don't... Like, even when he's like, oh, all right, well, I'll just have peanut butter and jelly. Make that apple butter. For fuck's sake. You came so close there to just being a normal human. Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it?
A normal 12-year-old human.
You know? Anyway. Sorry, guys. We're ragging on this hard today. All right, so let's go to the Watcher. Because what happens is that our little buddy, Nigel, who is adorable, goes off to get them some food and comes back and is acting weird. And he claims it's because the trauma of getting his eyeballs shot out has fucked with his gears and whatnot. But Susanna is really suspicious that it's actually a kind of cognitive dissonance thing. And that he probably has been programmed to not be able to lie, and that he is lying. And so these weird twitches are manifesting as a kind of anxiety about that, almost. Yeah. Which is a really kind of... Nigel the anxious robot seems really appropriate. And it turns out that she's basically 100% right.
Yes.
When we go to the Watcher, we go see things from the perspective of Mordred, the spider baby. Spider baby, spider baby. Is
whatever
he a person or a
Antichrist
spider?
does.
Maybe. He is transforming from baby to spider and back again to get up and in and out of his chair. And both of those forms have their drawbacks. Baby form, obviously, it's a baby. Not great. Not super useful. Not great, like, hand-eye coordination. Unable to climb down out of a chair without just flopping down and getting bruised and angry. Transforming into the spider takes a ton of energy, and then once he is the spider, his metabolism shoots up.
Yeah, he burns the food up faster.
Yeah.
Because that's closer to his true form.
And he is watching everything on cameras and infuriated that the two weapons at his disposal, which are both like automated, both are not responding. So he can see them just chilling, having a nice little picnic, and he can't do anything.
And he's struggling with, like, conflicted feelings toward Roland. And, like, there's more weird sex shit kind of here. Well, there's definitely more, like, not needed mention of penises in this chapter.
Lots.
But also, like, when he has the thought about going to Roland and, like, you know, accepting him as a father, he mentions accepting Jake and Eddie as brothers and Susanna as a sister, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, same.
But really, this chapter is about, like, well, I mean, Nigel brings him the bumbler, obviously, which we've already kind of talked about, but it's kind of... It's the first POV from Mordred. We find out that his leg's not going to grow back, and that when he's in human form, where the leg would be is not going to... Like, there's a wound that's not going to close up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminded me of... Did you ever read about, like, King Henry VIII and what went down with him?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Remember he got that injury from hunting that never healed? And a lot of people say that was part of, like, why women, because when he was younger, he was very tall for the era and in great shape. And so initially, women were really attracted to him, and he had no trouble getting mistresses and whatever. And then as time wore on, he started to gain a ton of weight. And a lot of that, people say, was because this injury prevented him from being as active as he used to be. And also, women didn't want to go near him simply because the wound that never healed stank really, really badly.
Also, he was a douchebag. That also probably helped.
You know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a given, is it not?
Sure.
You were born into kinghood and you're probably a douchebag. But yeah, I just kept thinking about that. And can Stephen King not describe it as custard-like? That custard-like this time, a couple chapters ago, it was like curds. I hate it. Oh god, it's so fucking disgusting. Ugh, can't handle it.
I want to come back to this real quick, but quickly, can we go back to the previous chapter?
Yes.
Just real fast, because
sure.
there's a couple of things here that I want to mention. First of all, I have a question for you, and this is a legitimate question. When Roland says, "The Crimson King is old, and I have come more and more to believe that he is imprisoned somehow."
Oh right, I forgot about that.
Does that come out of nowhere, or
Yes.
am I okay?
I forgot about it because it comes out of nowhere, to be honest.
I'm not misremembering that. It's like he's just like, yeah, I figure he's in prison. Everybody's like, what? No, well, actually, everybody's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about. But again, it's like, you just figure that? Like, why? Like, there's no explanation for this. The other thing I want to bring up is just to mention, they have a plan of attack here. They are going to go to the prison, the Devar Tete or whatever, that's next to Thunderclap Station, and they're going to either kill the Breakers or free them. They're not sure which one, but one of the two has to happen because their work is nearly done, as they say. So I just want to touch on that because that's important. I mean, I assume it's important, having not read this book. I don't think it's a spoiler to let you know that, like, doing something about the people breaking the beams is important.
Right. I think that's fair.
And then the last thing I just want to mention is when Roland sends Nigel to get chalk and paper for them to draw this little map on, he says, "Bring me a pencil and a piece of chalk and do it Jin." What the fuck is Jin?
I forgot about that. He doesn't ask. He just asks for a pencil and a piece of chalk, right? He doesn't ask for paper, does he?
That's true. No, it's just pencil and a piece of chalk.
So does he draw this on the floor?
I guess. I mean, he probably doesn't think to ask for paper because he just assumes they don't have any. Because paper for Roland is like the greatest and most rare thing ever.
I guess.
But Steven. Stop making up words, my dude.
Yeah.
You don't need... You could have just said, do it quickly.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, there's no reason to... The idea that he's never used this word before in this whole series, has Roland never had to tell somebody to do something quickly? Of course he has. I'm sure if we went back with an eye to it, we would find specifically several instances of him being like, hurry the fuck up.
Yeah, and I'm really not seeing why King felt the need, specifically in the last 3 books, which he wrote after the accident when he came back to the story. Why the stuff he had written wasn't good enough? Like, why the world building he had done wasn't good enough, and he can't seem to stop reinventing this thing. And it's just like, I have no idea. Like, I have questions, again, something I want to get to at the end, but I have a lot of questions about why a lot of these last 3 books needed to be here. And I just think these little, like, vocabulary words are... They are the things that I'm allowed to rant about right now in this regard. Like, I can't rant about other things not needing to be here because that gives shit away. But I can talk about Jin because it makes no sense. And I don't see the point.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like the kind of thing that, again, editors, man, do they just not touch him? Is that just where he is now? Like, I was joking around about that, but there really does come a point where it's like, you guys have to realize how much how jarring it is to have yet another turn of phrase thrown in our face at the end of a 7-book series that we've never ever seen. I mean, this is like, people complain about the Deathly Hallows at the end of Harry Potter, and it's like that, but every chapter it's like there's another, you know what I mean? Like, on a smaller scale, to be sure,
right?
But still, it feels like such a strange time to decide that you're going to pull all this out, and that you'd think maybe the editors were in the same place that I am now, where they just started to become resigned that there was all kinds of vocabulary that they didn't know, and just sort of let it wash over them. and didn't really decided just to not call it out at all.
I mean, it really puts me in mind of, like, what might be more truthful than I thought at the time, of one of the Stephen King gags in Family Guy. When he's talking to, like, his editor or his agent, I don't know which one, and, like, pitching a new story, and he's completely bored, and he's like, there's this couple, and they get attacked by a, and he, like, reaches over and picks up a lamp, like a lamp monster. and the editor is like, "You're not even trying anymore, are you?" And King is, like, jabbing him with a lamp, going, ah. And the editor's like, "When can I have it?"
The thing is that I feel like it is him trying, but he's trying too late, or he's trying the wrong way.
He's almost trying too hard. It's like, dude, it was good enough.
Yeah.
It was good enough.
It's like he I don't know, maybe is this him hiding behind the fact that he doesn't have a good ending? And he's like really worried about it? So he's like, let me throw a bunch of firecrackers in your face so that you won't notice when I run away.
People, if you're a writer or an aspiring writer, just quick word of advice. Like, this kind of shit is annoying and, like, was annoying when this book came out in 2003. Now, when we have, like, in a world where there are podcasts like this one.
In a world.
And podcasts where, like, that are all named the blank minute because every episode analyzes a minute of a film. Mm-hmm. You have to think about this kind of thing.
Yeah, I really do. There are so many, like, classic novels and stuff that I wonder how well they would have held up if they were released today.
Yeah.
Because some of them don't. There was listen, I'm about to get a bunch of, like, hate mail, but there are some Edgar Allan Poe stories that all he had was, like, a vignette, and he decides to just add some flowers to the beginning and end of it. And that's about all it is. And there's like an overdue, they do Spooktober, where they read scary stories throughout the month of October. And I think it was last year or the year before where they did a couple Edgar Allan Poe stories. And they were a little shocked at how little substance there was to some of them. There's just, and there's obviously a change in the way that we consume media in the modern day. To a degree, it's the consumer has changed from having all the time in the world, and we're able to just leisurely read through a bunch of table setting. And now we want the fucking meat of the story, and we want it now, and you better fucking deliver immediately, and you better not waste my goddamn time. So, in that respect, I understand why something that appealed years and years ago wouldn't to the same level today. But things like this, it does sort of feel almost like he was brainstorming for himself, and they decided to keep it and put it in print anyway, even though this should have just kind of been for him. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. I agree with your point about how, like, some stuff would not hold up. Mm-hmm. Like, I've written about it on Universes of the Mind, specifically when I wrote about Fahrenheit 451, which I didn't find terribly compelling, mm-hmm. to be honest. It was my first time reading it, and, like, I was like, man, this is pretty bad. And I love Ray Bradbury, you know, but it's like, you can't write like this anymore, man. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. It's like I'm going over this chapter again, and I'm back in the Watcher, and they find all of King's books on the shelf.
Yeah.
And Eddie's like, "Hey, should we, like, pack these up and take them with us, maybe?" And Roland's like, "No, they might confuse us." And Eddie's like, "Why do you think that?" And Roland's like, "I don't know. I just think it is. I just know it's true."
Yeah.
And, like, God, man, again, it is a thing to do this shit once. But to do it every other page, you're going to burn up a lot of goodwill real quick. And I think that part of my problem with this book is like, okay, man, you have to do something different.
I just, like, moments like that, it's like, why did you put these books here then in the story?
Yeah.
If you're just going to have Roland go, no, it's just my intuition telling me we shouldn't. Like, yes, okay, all 7 books have been really heavy on, I just know, my intuition, my touch, my whatever is just telling me.
Way more so these last 3, though.
It really has been leaning on that awfully heavy.
Yeah.
Awfully heavy, to the point where these characters are starting to not feel like people anymore. They're starting to just feel like weathercocks that the wind of the story is carrying wherever, and they happen to be good at shooting people.
Yeah.
And that's about all there is to it.
And also, like, if you hadn't found that copy of Salem's Lot back in the 5th book, then you would be way further behind on what's actually going on than you are now.
Yep.
So, like, so why would you think... Again, it's like, it's the same thing with Susanna. Like you said, it just feels like... It feels like a decision that doesn't gel with our understanding of the characters and with what has happened in their recent past.
Agreed.
And it feels like he's glossing over the shit because he wants to get somewhere. And when you're right like that, it's fine, but me as a reader, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, none of this matters. Like, what matters is the next chapter, or whenever you get to where you're actually going. That's where I actually have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating being told simultaneously that what we've just seen happen in the story isn't important. What is important is that you know the new words I've just made up.
And what is important are things that apparently aren't important enough to be said out loud. Like, oh, I just know that he's being kept somewhere as a prisoner. What? You're just going to drop that and not explain it. Have everyone else be like, yeah, that makes sense. And not explain why that's their reaction. This is the kind of stuff that I'm just like, what? What are you doing? Like, the thing, and this is what I had said like a couple books ago, is that he's focusing on weird shit that I don't care about, and the stuff that matters is just brushed over. Yeah. I don't know. It's just really starting to get old. Like, we're getting a little too far here for this to be just fixed. I'm not feeling optimistic.
There's one more thing here that I want to talk about with the Mordred stuff. It's kind of related to something we mentioned earlier. Well, it's kind of related to what we've been talking about just now, to be honest. And I just want to finish the thought. I want to talk briefly about the dream that Jake and Oy have, because I think that's really sweet, and I love that moment.
Okay.
But I'm confused as to how Mordred... And I brought this up earlier. As to how Mordred thinks about Susanna.
Okay.
Because
he doesn't think of her as his mother.
Nothing resembling. Like, when he talks about her shooting him, he refers to her as the brown bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like... Considering the connection that she felt with having a baby. And, like, even in the first chapter, I guess not the first chapter, but the second chapter that we're talking about, where they go and look at Mia's body. You know, Susanna has a lot of sympathy for Mia, as we've seen, and, like, her wanting to have a baby.
Mm-hmm. And
a lot of the early part of this book, and most of Song of Susanna, was kind of about her, like, deciding that having, like, helping Mia have the baby was okay, and kind of taking ownership of the birth and of the subsequent child as one of its parents. And to have Mordred, like, not just reject that, but to not even really think about it. Like, to not give it any due consideration at all. Like, for him to go outright and think of Susanna when he thinks about her as a potential sister and not as a mother, and for him to not, like, acknowledge her role at all in his birth, when we've seen that Mordred does know a lot of shit. When he ate Mia, he absorbed a lot of information. And he's growing really quickly. He's learning really quickly. He has certain instincts. He can commune with technology. He can telepathically talk to people. He can calm down the Billy Bumbler. He can do all these things. But for him to just not at all feel any connection to Susanna, I feel is, like, really bizarre. And I don't get it.
Now, see, this is something that didn't really bother me. And I guess it's because of the nature of the story here. We're calling him Mordred. And I believe in the original story of King Arthur, Mordred doesn't know who his mother is. And it is not important to him because he knows who his father is, and that's it. And he's obsessive about that. And that's
Morgan doesn't raise him in the original story?
I don't believe she does. I think that she gives him up because she is having a lot of trouble with the fact that he's born of incest.
Huh,
you know, and this might just be the version that because, you know, there's like umpteen.
Yeah. But, like, when I think of King Arthur, I feel like the image... I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, I think of, like, the fucking, like, 90s Merlin show with Sam Neill.
Oh, God.
So...
yeah, the one that I'm thinking of is Miss of Avalon. Which, don't get me started on Marion Zimmer Bradley and what a fucking tragedy that is, but...
Well, Miss of Avalon is, like, a complete retelling, right? Like,
complete from beginning to end, like, completely different. It's not the only one that I've read. The other one was Crystal Cave, that whole series. But I'm not 100%, but all I think about in this case is that who his mother is absolutely does not fucking matter to him. It just doesn't. All he cares about is his father and the fact that he has to take him down and face off with him and take his place and be better. And it's like consuming. So I get what you're saying in principle, but because of how I went into this, what I expected him to be like based on my, you know, the whole allegory here, falls pretty much exactly in line with what I expected. I didn't think that I didn't think that he would even think of her as his mother, to be honest, simply because she wasn't the one who actually gave birth to him. He feels like a really practical, literal kind of creature.
Well, because I was going to say, because, like, I get the argument that he doesn't even care who his mom is, but, like, he thinks about Mia as his mother.
Right.
And, like, he's not at all, like, regretful about having killed her, but she was definitely mom.
But she's the one who actually gave birth to him.
Right, but why does he have in his head, without any issue, the fact that he had two dads? And he doesn't think of Susanna as in any way having that relationship. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just confused because I feel like that was built up a lot, and like he knows Susanna would shoot him on sight and try to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and she did try to kill him. But he also knows Roland would shoot him on sight, but Roland is still dad. And, like, but the Crimson King is also dad. And it's like, it feels like, given the emphasis on the twims going on in the story, like, it feels out of balance. You know what I mean?
No, I get what you mean. You know what? You know what it is? I'm realizing. I don't care because I hated her and the pregnancy storyline and her connection to it and her being reduced to that.
Well, yeah, I hated it too. But
the fact that he isn't thinking about her in terms of mom is nothing but a relief to me. So I don't really care. I think that's what it is.
Again, not saying it's bad, just kind of weird.
But yeah, but I'm just explaining why I don't think I got hung up on it and didn't really think about it. It's just because mostly I was just so ready for that to be over that I was like, yep, that's fine, cool, we're moving past it.
All right,
so yeah,
fair enough.
I get what you're saying, and I don't think you're wrong, but I'm realizing all of a sudden that's where my interest just stopped. So
what do you make of this dream that Oi has?
Yeah, Oi dreams about the death of his friend, which just seems like such a bummer. That you're going to have dreams about the death of any of your kind ever? Yikes. I'm sure it's like the proximity is really the thing. But, yeah, I just really felt bad for Oi. And I feel bad too that, I mean, has Oi dreamed before? Because Jake is very ready to just sort of discount that. And be it's a dream. But I don't know that there's precedent for that.
I don't think we've ever seen Oi's dreams before. He definitely, he wakes up when the other bumbler dies as though he knows.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems pretty clear that he does know. But then he has this weird dream, where he's with Jake under the moon, and Jake asks him who died, and he's like, everyone.
Yeah, many.
Yeah. And then they go to, a different dream, and they're playing together, and this other bumbler shows up who's all sad, and he tries to talk to them, but they don't know what he's saying because he's speaking English.
Right.
What do you make of that? Because that doesn't really make sense to me.
I got nothing.
All right, fair enough.
That's all I got for you is a big fat nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder because, it says, too, that Jake also dreamed and that their minds were connected, so they, dreamed together.
Yeah.
And I wish that Jake had, really seen... I guess what's kind of bothering me right now, actually, is that it seems like Susanna's the only one who really seems aware they're being watched and that this thing is out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a lot that I'm not... we have the moment of them sitting down and telling each other everything, but I'm not sure what everything means. Did she tell them that the thing was a spider? Did she tell Roland that he was actually the father? Does he know that? Because he doesn't say anything in direct reference to being the thing's father in any of his dialogue.
Yeah, that's weird.
And I was really looking for it, because I kind of thought that might come as a bit of a shock.
I didn't think about that.
But there's no indication that she shared that part, which feels like a big fucking deal that you should mention.
I mean, the only indication that she did was when it says she shared everything. But
there's no reaction from him.
No. And you would think at least there would be a reaction from, Eddie and Jake.
Right?
Even if Roland takes it in stride. It's actually kind of... Yeah, I don't know. I mean... Yeah, I got nothing for you on that one.
And this is the kind of thing that really is another example of I don't care about, well, who put the the ball in the bowling bag and who put the... I don't care, because I figure it's Deus Ex Machina. If I never got the answer, I would not be surprised. But how Eddie reacts when he finds out that he isn't the one that impregnated her, that his leader is actually the one who impregnated his wife indirectly and is like stepping on over his head yet again in another point in his life. Like, that is a really interesting thing that I would like to have seen and heard about, you know?
Yeah.
I just feel like Steven is not understanding the parts of this story that are actually compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should take a quick moment to mourn Nigel, because he dies in the Watcher.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
And I liked Nigel and felt for him. And
his dissonance fries his circuits.
Yeah. And of course, right after that, King, like, directly asks us to feel sympathy for Mordred, and I'm curious as to where you're at with that one.
Wait, say that again?
King says, like, it's okay to feel bad for Mordred.
Oh, well, whatever. You know, mostly I feel like the part that I really liked was just what I'd show you is much more bizarre than anything we've looked at so far, and I warn you in advance that your first impulse will be to laugh.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's all right. Laugh if you must. Just don't take your eye off what you see, for even in your imagination, here is a creature which can do you damage. Remember that it came of two fathers, both of them killers.
What the fuck is supposed to be funny?
The fact that Mordred is a 6-month-old baby in a diaper having a tantrum, I guess. Yeah.
He says your first instinct will be to laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't... Okay.
And this is, like, I really enjoyed that intro. And if I saw this on screen, maybe? The only thing is that there's no way to picture this without picturing the hideous CGI of, like, Boss Baby. Like, it can't be a real baby, which I feel like would actually be very unsettling. It has to be the creepy baby from, like, Ally McBeal that dances around.
That wouldn't make me laugh.
It wouldn't. That's my point, is that the funny thing would be a real baby. If they were able to make it look genuine. But it would have to just miss because it would be a creepy CGI baby that wouldn't make you laugh because you'd just be like, oh, God, what is this now? Jesus. And you'd want it to be over.
Even then, though, like, I don't... Like... I remember reading this again and going, like, what am I supposed to be laughing at? Like, that he's pooped his diaper?
Yeah.
Like, that's not funny, that stinks, and now I have to change it. Like, what's... I don't know, maybe I've worked in childcare too long.
Maybe Stephen King just has a way more elementary sense of humor than we want to believe.
Maybe. I don't know. That's weird. I forgot about that part.
So yeah, he has a tantrum because he can't kill these people. And he's thinking about how, like, being a spider is his true form, but his thoughts are, like, way simplified when he's a spider, so he's not able to do that, like, subtle thinking.
It's like turning into the Hulk.
Right, yeah. And yeah, then we get the Bumbler. Hate all of this. Hate it!
Oh, incidentally, Natasha, I don't know if you knew this or not, but regarding Mordred, he was of two worlds, the foretold joining of Prim and Am, of Gadosh and Godosh, of Gan and Gilead.
Okay. You know,
I just thought you might need to know that.
This is, and I'm really curious, actually, if there are any listeners out there who are, like, learned in the parlance of the Dark Tower, because I don't even feel like the book is consistent enough to create that kind of investigation, like where people get really into the names and language of Lord of the Rings, or even fucking Klingon or something, you know?
Yeah.
I'm wondering are there people listening who are like, no, but he said this before, or this has been, and they're getting frustrated with us. I'm 100% here to learn if that is true, if we're missing things, and if there's stuff that has been hinted at. But like Godash, I don't remember this at all. Is this something that was anywhere?
Hit me the fuck up. Hit me up, guys, on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever. Like, let us know, because
there's actually,
if we're missing something. If
you're a patron, there's a patrons-only spoiler chat with Miles in it. And you can go in there and talk about what the fuck. And if it's, you know, if whatever it is has spoilers in it. If it's not full of spoilers, you can just email it to unspoiledpodcast@gmail.com.
I can think of, and there's also a, you know, as we mentioned before, there's a Facebook chat with me in it that's all about Dark Tower-y spoiler things. And I can think of, like, at least 3 people who I kind of expect to message that group after they hear this. Mm-hmm. To be like, actually, here's what Godash and Godash is, or whatever. Which is great. Like, that's great. I really hope that there's something I'm missing here, you know? But it feels like he's making up nonsense words.
Like, if they say, no, this is what it means, that's different than this is what it means and we've seen it here, here, and here. If it's just this is what it means, well, that's not enough. You just telling me that and him just telling me that isn't enough. I need to feel like this was established somewhere. And that's really my problem with it all. Is not that it exists, is that it suddenly exists when it seemingly did not 2 books ago. So, you know, that's really the thing is if there are people who have made a study of this and know, or maybe there's like a Dark Tower glossary out there somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised, maybe. You know? So yeah, I'm just, cause I'm prepared. I am actually more than prepared. I am eager to excuse this. I want to excuse it because I want to get past this garbage and focus on the story. And at the moment, I don't feel like I'm being allowed to just enjoy the story because he keeps on pulling this shit. So, I don't want you guys feeling like I'm not even going to message her because she isn't going to want to hear it. No, I actually do. There have been plenty of cases in the past, not just in this podcast, but others where people have been like, well, this is what this is. And I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I don't fucking care at this point. No, not doing. Like, the titles for the Orphan Black podcasts, the episodes of that show are named from sentences and phrases from different books and famous speeches, and they're inscrutable. I don't know what they were thinking. And somebody messaged me and was like, well, they're actually from this. And I'm like, I know that, but they don't work is the problem. And that is an instance where you can tell me and I'm not going to hear you. But this is one where the opposite is true, is that I desperately want to be able to get past it. I am frustrated with myself that I can't stop talking about it and thinking about it and be sidetracked by it every time I come across this, you know? So, and it's, you know, I say that, but also I wasn't sidetracked because I just ignored it because I'm tired. So that's the other aspect of it.
I will say I cannot now unsee, like, King not showing their reactions to various parts of these stories. Mm-hmm. Especially when it talks about how Roland stopped her to talk about the turtle. And, like, that leads into their whole conversation about who left the bag and who left the key. And I think it's what you said. I think it's like King doesn't seem to know the interesting parts of his own story. Mm-hmm. We didn't need an explanation for that, especially after Song of Susanna. I am suitably prepared. Like, I don't like it, but I'm prepared to accept your Deus Ex Machina bullshit. But give me some character interaction, man. Like, let me see these people, because I like these people, and I want to know what they're all about. And instead, it kind of goes from there to like, okay, we're done storytelling. What are we going to do now?
Yeah, I mean, they've been split up for the better part, like almost 2 whole books at this point.
And it's not just like Roland's reaction to the pregnancy, although that's probably the big one, but it's like, what about Susan and what about Susanna and her godfather or whatever, her uncle, and like, are they gonna tell her that her voice came out of a cross when they blew on it? Like, I mean, are they gonna tell them anything about what they learned? Are they gonna, what's Susanna and Jake's reaction to Roland and Eddie saying, "Hey, yo, we met the dude who will write all of us into existence"?
Right.
Like, is this just boring to King? Like, does he just not care? Is he kind of, or are we at a point in his mind as an author where he's like, oh, they just all understand? I don't get why that stuff's not worthy of a scene, but, where'd the turtle come from is, you know?
Yeah, I'm realizing that this section describes where I'm at perfectly in terms of my being receptive to explanations. Is the bumbler being like, "Don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, please let me live." And he responded, "All is well, don't fear, Cully, all is well." The bumbler in the bag relaxed, not believing exactly, but hoping to believe. That feels accurate. That's where I'm at. I'm not buying it, but like, I'd like to buy it.
Right, yeah. It'd be great.
But I suspect he may just suck my blood and just leave me a dry husk. So.
All right, well, on that
note. So let's see, where are we? Like, when does this chapter exactly end? Because we have him talking about his dad and everything.
It just ends with him, like, looking at the monitors, going, like... Basically, it ends with him saying, like, even if they didn't kill me, he thinks that I love the bit where he's like, if I showed up there, they would shoot me dead, which is true, and then they would cut off my balls and shit on my grave. Yep.
And he's like, and even if they did accept me, I'd have to accept that Roland was my din, which not happening. Which I'm like, yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. So that's how it ends.
So, all right. New patrons, what's up?
What's up, guys?
My apologies that I'm being so negative lately, but, it's not my fault. The house was on fire, and it wasn't my fault. So, this week we have Kay Wakeman, Michael Sardina, Kayla Harless, Jordan Rose, Sarah Marsteller, Lori Peterson, Miek Gorison, Brandon Riddenauer, Julie Volpenine, and Rachel Jimenez. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for becoming patrons, if any of you listen to this show. And if you are interested in becoming a patron and getting access to a bunch of extra podcast episodes and community stuff in the patrons only Facebook group, go to patreon.com/unspoiled. The patrons group is very active, and there's a lot of arguing, and it's fun.
Yeah, there is.
I feel like that's about all I'm going to say this time around. I have some other announcements that'll be potentially coming up later, but nothing's nailed down yet. So Miles, take it away.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the chapters here. Yes, away is what is where I shall take it. Hey,
well said.
Thank you. All y'all can find everything that I do, or at least links to everything that I do, over on www.mjschneiderman.com. That is MJSCHNEIDERMAN.com, or just, like, Google me. it'll show up. But if you go to that website, you'll find links to everything I do. The Smash Fiction podcast, which we just recently came out with 2 episodes of Extraordinary League because April Fool's Day was a Sunday and we couldn't resist. We got Jack Harkness versus Jack Sparrow coming up soon, so keep an eye out for that. That's a good one, and actually, well, I won't say anything, but suffice it to say, if you're enjoying this podcast, you may very well enjoy very much that particular episode of Smash Fiction, or at least part of it. And then Odyssey Storytelling Podcast. You can find links to that there. We just released the full March show, which is the full live March special, which was fun. At the end of April, we'll be releasing another full hour-long show, which I will actually be telling a story on. So that'll be a lot of fun. Keep an eye out for that. You can go to Universes of the Mind at universesofthemind.com, which is my science fiction blog, to read all the great stuff I wrote back in, like, fucking September, I think, at some point. Anyway, and also I was recently a guest on a podcast called Everything is Awesome.
Nice.
So I think there might be a part 2 of that coming up, but part 1 is out right now. And Natasha, you're not allowed to listen to it, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Because Jeff, who brought me on, is a big fan of this show, and we talk about this story. So it does contain Dark Tower spoilers for you and for anyone else listening to this who have not yet finished the series. But yeah, for all you have, you can go listen to Everything is Awesome and listen to me talk about kind of my life and my childhood, and I kind of recap the story of how I met Sharon a little bit in there, and there's some political conversations, and
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it's fun. Don't fucking crucify me for that shit. Do not at me. I don't apologize for anything that I said. And yeah, it's fun. Go check it out. And I think that's about all I have to plug right now. I am going to be, Claire of the Smash Fiction podcast, recently recorded an episode for the Geek Wars podcast, which is a nerd trivia contest, trivia game thing. That's not out yet, but it will be, so keep an eye out for Geek Wars. We're part of Season 2. If you haven't gone back and listened to Season 1 yet, it's a lot of fun, so I highly recommend the first season of Geek Wars, and then if you subscribe to it, you will be ready and waiting when Season 2 comes out, and Claire and I make our appearance on the show, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
The way that you, like, just in the... you put the accentuation on the syllable that made it said Claire and I make out, and I was like, what? But then you were like continuing on with that sentence, and I was like, oh, my bad.
No, that's a different podcast, actually.
Are there podcasts out there that are just like sex noises?
Is that like kind of like an ASMR type thing?
Yeah, right. There probably is, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a podcast about everything.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't even need to make it like you could just take the audio from porn and just put it on iTunes, I guess.
I mean, yeah, but it's way more fun to make your
own.
Oh,
well, sure, but I'm just saying, if you just want to like be a content king and not necessarily quality king, you could just do that, or have like original content, like on a bi-weekly basis,
right?
And then
right,
fill it in,
or like the original content is a Patreon goal. That's how you can get paid for having sex without being in porn.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I need to look into this. What am I doing with my life?
Seriously,
that's my
dude.
Breakout. That's what I would do.
That's what's gonna do it.
I mean, they all said that I had a good voice way back in the day, but I never did capitalize on that shit.
It is a sexy voice, though. You know that.
It's like, I got that compliment so much at first, and then it just stopped, probably because I've become a militant feminist and recently divorced woman. But it has made me kind of go, has my voice changed? Has something, am I different now? And all of a sudden it's over for me? But, I probably should get in on that. Anybody out there with experience on that shit, hit me up. Just kidding. Don't hit me up. It's creepy. Don't hit me up. I won't talk to you. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap this up. You want 2 chapters next week? 3 chapters? 4 chapters? 1 chapter? 6 chapters?
So
Want
I
to
was
just go ahead and finish the book?
Before I had to do plugs, I was trying to figure out what we should do in that regard. It's at least 2. I feel like so here's the thing. I feel like if we only do 2, you're gonna be mad.
Okay.
Like, with the way that second chapter ends.
Is there enough to talk about, though, for a whole episode with just the 2? In your opinion?
I think that we should do... I think we should do 3.
All right. 3 it is.
I think we should do 3. I really, I'm not trying to, get this done early, but they're short chapters and they go well together, and I just feel like 3 is the way to go.
All right.
So.
Well, I'm trusting your judgment here, so don't fuck it up.
I'm not gonna. I didn't. Let's do 3 again. Let's get the fuck through this book.
All right. Well, everyone, you heard it here first. Unspoiled, delicately, carefully, subtly examining getting the fuck through this book. 3 chapters next week. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.